Hello and welcome to Safe Schools. I'm Curtis Graves.
And I'm Andy Howard.
Andy, great show. I think we're going to be talking about a program out of my office with Mobile Police Department, our Victims Advocacy program. That program is designed to help us bridge the gap of communication between law enforcement and our community in serving our victims.
Bridging the gap, that's an important thing, and advocating, that's also significant. I think it's going to be a great show, and I look forward to it. We'll be right back.
Hello, and we're back. I'm happy to introduce two important people to the city of Mobile. Stacy Woodyard, she is a victims advocate with the Mobile Police Department, and Detective Nathaniel McCarty with the Mobile Police Department. Welcome to the show, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome. Stacy, a little bit about you and how you found yourself in this career path.
Well, just a little bit about me. I am from originally Tuskegee, Alabama, and I've been in Mobile a while, a great number of years now.
Okay.
And the way I found myself as a victims advocate is just loving community work.
Okay.
I worked in our community here for a number of years, and I enjoy working with people, and I just have a passion for our community to make it better.
Okay. And advocating for victims, Nate, as a law enforcement officer, in and of itself, that's advocating for victims, but this is not just a regular law enforcement task. So tell us a little bit about how you find yourself engaged in this particular element of law enforcement.
Well, as an officer, we deal with victims all the time. You know, when we get called by the police, we don't get called by the suspect or the perpetrator. We get called by the victim.
Yes.
But you never know what that person is going through, what that victim is going through. They have some mental trauma, some emotional trauma, and what we want to focus on as police officers is getting the bad guy and getting the charge and getting them off the street. But we tend to forget that this victim is going through some things, and that's where Stacy comes in.
And to add to that also, Andy, I'll share this with some folks that some people may wonder, why are we venturing into advocacy for victims, law enforcement?
Okay.
Well, the reason why is because it was a 19-year study done, as I understand it, by the Department of Justice and the FBI, and what they revealed basically, or what they uncovered, was that over a 19-year period, only 10% of victims of crimes actually receive services for the crimes that were committed against them. And that's horrible. That's horrible that happens, but a lot of that is because of misinformation or no information, and the goal of the advocate is to help educate victims of crimes so that those things that they've lost during the process of that crime, that they have some way of recovery or recovering those things, because it's not just the trauma that the physical trauma being impacted by violence, but it's also the things that happen after that, the residual effects of it. Let's talk about those for a little bit, Stacy. So what are some of the residual effects of being a victim of crime?
One thing that I think about when I myself, I've been a victim of crime before, and I think about, you know, when you've been the victim of a robbery, let's just say a robbery.
Sure.
Someone comes into your home. I mean, they're coming into basically your sanctuary. You feel like you've been violated.
Okay.
You know, you feel like someone has come in and just seen your most personal things. And as a victim, I know how I felt. It really changed me in the way that I acted in my own home. It made me feel vulnerable. It made me feel like I was alone at times, you know, when someone comes into your home. And at that time, I was very young and I didn't know that I had certain rights. So my goal in this position is to help other victims know they have rights and that they are not alone.
So being a victim of a burglary where someone comes into your home, you're speaking on behalf of so many other people that have had the same thing happen to them, because let's face it, these things happen everywhere, not just in the city of Mobile, but all over the United States. People are always, every second, just like right now, someone is being victimized. And no one knows it but the victim and the person who's victimizing that person. But after that, they have a lot to deal with. They have the loss of so many different things. Officer McCarty, or Nate, I call you Nate, Detective Nate. Bottom line is this, is that you deal with these people all the time. You deal with them from the perspective of getting the information you need to get the bad guy. But so often we only get fixed on getting the bad guy, not understanding that they're still a good person, that although you're helping them, but you're not addressing all their needs because you don't have all the tools on your tool belt to address all those needs.
We don't have all the tools on the tool belt. We don't want that person, once we've done our job, got the bad guy off the street, to be afraid to walk to their car because they've been carjacked or they've been robbed or anything like that. We want them to be able to function in society once we're done with the court system.
And Stacey, let's talk about the goal of the advocacy group for the Mobile Police Department, because this is new for the Mobile Police Department. Actually, it's new for the nation as a systems-based approach to addressing victims of crimes. Let's talk about that. Tell me what your take on that.
Well, one of the goals that we have, of course, is to increase victims coming in and requesting services as far as knowing their rights. We also want to provide crisis intervention to those victims. We can also help them with compensation through the state with any,
things that they've lost and that kind of thing, or dealing with the emotional aspect of it.
Yes, dealing with emotional aspect of it as far as crisis intervention. We can help them with counseling, whether some people may need short-term counseling, some may need longer-term counseling. Depends on the crime that was committed against them and how they react to that crime.
And I think what people don't understand, and what we're still wrapping our brains around, is that how huge of an issue we have in the disconnect that victims, undocumented victims, for example, those who have had things happen to them that no one knows about, and the impact that that has on crime. Because if no one knows that you've been a victim of, let's say, a sexual assault, then that bad guy's still out there committing the same crimes, and he's creating more victims. That's why it's so important to get victims to understand what their rights are, because sometimes the bad guy is someone who may be a provider for them. It may be someone who is extremely close to them, and they feel like if I report it, then what happens to me next? Where do I go? What do I do? The goal is to educate them on what they can do and what's out there for them, those resources. Nate, you work with victims of crimes, sexual crimes.
Yes.
Without naming people, but give me some understanding of the emotion that is attached to those crimes.
Well, every victim reacts differently, and especially with a victim of a crime with the magnitude of sexual crime. Someone's innocence is taken away. They don't know how to react. They don't know how to react around people. They're very emotional. Some are angry. Some are, they will shut themselves out from the rest of the world. And that's why we want to provide those services so that we can get them back to being their old self and try to give them that total healing.
And it's got to start. Hey, we're gonna take a break, and when we get back, I want you to go ahead and expound a bit about what that means when they ask for help.
Yes.
Each month, more than 90 guns are reported stolen from unlocked vehicles. creating the potential of serious injury or death.
Lock it up.
Many violent acts and crimes are committed with stolen guns.
Lock it up.
According to ATF, stolen guns pose a substantial threat to public safety.
Lock it up.
Be responsible. Take time to record your handgun serial number and secure it from thieves. Lock it up.
Lock it up for me.
Hello, I'm Helena Tyler. I would like to invite you to join me for Inside Education. Come with us as we take a look at what's happening around Mobile County Public Schools, as well as what's happening in your child's classroom. That's Inside Education, right here on the MCPSS TV network.
Nonviolence will start with me.
Nonviolence will start with me.
All across the Mobile County Public School System, students are taking the pledge.
I pledge to accept the responsibility of my actions.
To solve problems peacefully.
Respect myself and others.
The 100 Days of Nonviolence Pledge. It's an initiative to help explore alternative means of stopping violence among school students. Will you take the challenge? Get involved. Take a stand. 100 Days, 100 Ways.
And we're back. We want to continue having this dialogue about victim services and about, why it's so important that victims of crimes not keep that a secret, as it relates to reporting crime and receiving services. A victim has to report that crime that occurred against them within 72 hours. It's vital that they report these things so that they're cooperating with law enforcement, first of all, to get the bad guy off the street. And we're helping them actually address those immediate concerns. We're triaging their immediate needs with the hope of making sure that they have a safety plan, their shelter that they need, that we can provide that in some way or another, and that follows up with long-term case management by our advocates. But again, that goal is to get the bad guy off the street and to help that victim rebound from that crime. So, but when we talk about all of this, and again, you've dealt with, Nate, you've dealt with people who are hesitant to disclose being a victim of things, and how hard it is as an investigator to sometimes get them to understand that it's not just them that they're saving, they're also saving others who are out there that are exposed to this person. Can you talk a little bit about any experiences that you've had relative to that statement?
Yeah, sometimes we have victims that we have a saying here at the department: we don't have a victim, we don't have a crime. Mm-hmm. And that's the absolute truth, because we can't parade someone in there and accuse them of doing something, but we don't have a victim that's going to cooperate. And all of that is in part of trauma. We want to keep that victim from becoming a victim again. Mm-hmm. And see, those are the things that we're trying to deal with and trying to address, because if they become a victim again, then 9 times out of 10, there's someone else behind them who's going to become a victim, and we're going to be repeating the cycle.
So they don't get resolution, for one, if you don't say something.
Right.
So they're suffering. You can't get help until you ask for help. And the sooner you ask for the help, the sooner you can get help.
Right.
And the sooner you ask for assistance, the sooner you report the problem, correct, the sooner the problem can be addressed.
That's correct.
So time is very important here.
Yes, time is of the essence.
In healing, the sooner you get something asked in terms of asking for assistance and resources, the sooner you can get to being better.
Yeah. Let's talk about this too. Let's talk about the bad guy for a second. First of all, we understand sometimes that victims of crimes, if they don't receive the services that they need, they go back into an environment where violence is something that occurs on a regular basis. Sometimes they may become a perpetrator.
That's correct.
Okay, victims can sometimes transition to being perpetrators, whether they feel like they have to as a form of retaliation, or sometimes they do it because of what happens over a period of time to them. And let's say, for example, someone who sexually abused someone. You know, as an investigator myself in the past, I've dealt with perpetrators of sexual assaults and have learned through conversation with them as it relates to molestation that they were once victimized and never sought counseling or help. And as a result, they became a perpetrator. Does not excuse their behavior. They were a bad guy and they acted very wrong in their actions, and they got punishment that they deserve. But how important is it to know this kind of stuff beforehand so that we can stop the cycle and reduce the possibility of someone actually going to prison because they were once a victim, now they become a perpetrator?
This is very important because, like you said, there's someone that been accused of sexual abuse, but what you don't know is they were abused, their brother was abused, or their sister was abused, and it's almost like a family or generational curse. And what it does is put others at risk in the future. We don't even know who those victims are going to be, but it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I feel that's why this initiative is very important, because the community needs to know that the police care about victims. And I think that's why you know, this program is going to be vital in our community. It's going to help those victims know that they also have support from the police department, that police do care about victims and care about the things that affects our community, because of course the police, they're a part of the community. So they care about what happens to people in the community. And I feel like through this program, we're going to be able to bridge some of those gaps that we have between the police and the community by getting out in the community, letting them know that we're here for them.
And one of the things people need to understand is this is a grant program funded by the federal government because of the huge concern that we have as a nation of the problems that we have within our states and our local jurisdictions of crime, and how it's going unreported, and how, because it's going unreported, we're having more crime.
Yeah.
So there is a ripple effect to not reporting violence when it occurs to you. So it's important that we understand that, and it's important that we really fully embrace this program as a community and as a law enforcement agency, because sustainability comes from everyone benefiting from the services that you all are expected to provide to the community to safeguard our community, being advocates.
So this is a frequently asked question. What about me? And I guess you're beginning to try to answer that with this initiative then. When that victim says, what about me? Now you're able to say, there's a program that addresses the what about me part. And so how would they access that resource? What's the process for accessing victim advocacy resources, the kinds of resources that you're trying to make available to our community? How do they get to you?
Well, they can, of course, go to Mobile Police Department website, as well as they can call any precinct and get a hold of victim advocates. We're located in the Office of Strategic Initiatives, which is at 200 Government Street. So they can contact us through email as well. So we have several avenues for a victim to contact us. And of course, when they're reporting that crime to that police officer, we are developing a victim's card that the police officer will give to that victim.
We're going to take a brief break and we'll be right back.
Since 1836, Mobile County Public Schools has been producing productive citizens who have helped shape and build our region. We're the state's largest public school district with 88 schools, 54,000 students, and more than 7,200 employees. We are leading with 7 magnet schools and 13 national blue ribbon schools. Our students are learning through rigorous, relevant instruction that challenges students not only to learn facts and equations, but to think critically and globally. We are learning through a solid foundation built on project-based learning, robotics, and other STEM programs, a PACE program for gifted students, and other proven instructional tools, including Alabama's award-winning first-class pre-K program. We're leading by hiring and supporting quality teachers, administrators, and support personnel, and providing them with the tools to succeed. We are learning through innovative programs such as Talents Unlimited, a year-round school at Fondy Elementary, University of Alabama Early College, and a Signature Academy program that allows high school students to pursue their passions and explore potential careers. We're leading by producing college and career-ready graduates who earned more than 14,000 career credentials and $140 million in scholarships in 2018, with a 4-year graduation rate of 86%. We're learning by pushing ourselves to be better every day through professional development and fostering relationships with our students, our parents, and our community. We're leading by refusing to rest on our accomplishments, by giving 110% every day to ensure that we're producing well-rounded students and graduates who are prepared to meet the global challenges of the 21st century. We are Mobile County Public Schools. We're learning today. We are leading tomorrow.
And we're back. We were talking, Stacy, about if something happens and a person has been victimized. One of the things that they can do is make a phone call to the police, and the police officer can provide them with a card that informs them of victims' rights and a way to reach out to you guys. So the officer can give them a card, they can call the police, and the police can provide that through Curt's office, the strategic initiative. They can reach his office and you guys are there. So you all are going to be an important resource to the community now that we hope that they'll take advantage of. So what else would you say to a victim at this juncture, our audience, about why it's important for them to ask for these resources? Why is it important?
It's important because as a victim, the most important thing I feel is for them to feel supported.
Okay.
Support is very important, and we want to provide that support to them. We want to provide access to them. We want to provide that information that they need. So many times when a person is victimized, they're in a crisis situation, number one, but how do you go from that crisis situation to get into a place of feeling supported? And so we want to be able to bridge that gap for them, provide that intervention when they're in that place of crisis, give them the support they need, give them resources that maybe they didn't know that they had access to. So that's why I feel that it's very important for victims to report that crime, because now we have a program here at Mobile Police Department where we can support them from a law enforcement side or a system-based side. And we also want to make sure they know that we're here for them.
And I think one of the important things too, Andy, to not interrupt you, but that, the approach we're taking is a systems-based approach, not a community-based approach. We have a number of programs, advocacy groups that are doing excellent work in our community. And our job is to help support them at the same time of supporting victims and law enforcement and creating a better relationship or continuity between the understanding between law enforcement and the victim who is needing service, so that there's no disconnect during the criminal justice process, because we all know the length that occurs of time between something happening to you and you getting your day in court. A lot of things happen during that time. You may move from where you were, and law enforcement may not know. It may be that you're having issues with employment because you're having to meet law enforcement or you're having to come to court. No one understands. You're having some difficulty with your boss. But you have that advocate now that will be supportive of you in that sense, that could represent you in matters relative to getting someone to understand the importance of you being in court. So many different issues that people don't quite understand, that only we understand at this point because we've been tasked to do this. And that's to provide this information so people clearly understand what their rights are.
Nate, about the violence side of this conversation. You know, there's violence that occurs out there, and when a person is a victim of a violent act, if they don't feel resolution, if they don't feel support, if they don't feel like they can get heard or action, what then is a potential issue? Does that person become a potential perpetrator?
They do. So many times, investigators have dealt with a victim of a gunshot wound, and they're uncooperative because, one, they don't trust the law enforcement side of things. And let's be honest, the legal system is a lengthy system. So sometimes people become weary during that time, the ones who do report. But ones that do not want to report, they are at high risk. It's almost a certainty that they will become a perpetrator. And now we have a double-edged sword, so to speak. We don't want that.
No. And you also talked about that level of frustration because maybe they don't understand that this is gonna get resolved, but it takes time. And if they don't have anybody to talk to, answer those questions about what's going on, what the process is, maybe that would reduce instead if they knew them taking actions into their own hands and then becoming perpetrators. So it saves the community both ways. It saves the community that the victim gets some resolution, and we then also don't have another crime committed.
Exactly.
Well, there's a lot to be said about what we're doing. There's a lot to be said about, you know, getting more clarity and wanting to provide information to the public about those services, and we will be launching campaigns in the near future to address these things to the public that Nate and Stacy, you both will be tasked with doing. But again, our goal is to educate the community on what their rights are so that we can have a safer community. And, you know, short of that, can you guys real quickly tell me how, or share with the audience how you can be reached? I think you've already done that. Nate, can you give them your information?
Sure. I can be reached by email at nathaniel.mccarty@cityofmobile.org. Also, we'll be launching a site, address called Victims Advocate at cityofmobile.org. And that way they'll be able to be accessed by myself and also all of the advocates and also Commander Graves.
And again, we thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules, because I really got you guys doing a lot out there. So thank you for taking time out coming out here to help educate the public about the services that we're providing to the community. This has been Safe Schools. Thank you for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.